Hello everyone and welcome to today's CoreALM Solution Manager workshop on Test Suite. Our topic today will be on SAP Test Suite 7.2 Change Impact Analysis and Test Scope Optimization with BPCA and SCA. And we'll have a live demo at the end of the presentation. This is the final workshop in the Test Suite series, and we'll start a new series next month. I'd like to introduce today's presenter. We have Larry Wilson, a Senior Solution Manager, Testing Practice Lead, and Experienced Consultant with CoreALM. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely apologize for the confusion and timing for our previous workshop. It seemed that quite a few of you received the wrong time and date when you registered for the webinar. We identified it to us having put in the Eastern timing instead of the Pacific when the webinar was created. However, we do have a recording of the webinar, so feel free to reach out to us if you'd like a copy of that. Viosa, our community manager, should have also reached out to you with a link to the webinar recording last week if you were registered. Also, again, I'd like to apologize in advance if this webinar is cut short. Larry is currently in Florida, and given the current situation in Florida, he is actually currently without power and on his phone hotspot. We discussed postponing today's workshop, but he's extremely dedicated and does not want to let you down, since we have quite a few number of registrants today. As such, he'll be chugging along on battery and on his phone's hotspot, and we hope to not let you down. So if this is your first time attending, we run these workshops for the SAP community, and if you're a regular, really thank you for attending. I'd like to add that we run these workshops to give back to the SAP community, as that's part of our company culture. As such, we make these workshops interactive with polls to get feedback and learn how to make it a better for future webinars. We have a few polls throughout the webinar, so your participation is appreciated. All right, so let's move on with the agenda. We do an intro about us and a quick overview of Solution Manager 7.2 for those new to the platform. We then proceed on to the main topic on Test Suite, SCA, BPCA, followed by a live demo. We've finished the workshop with the value proposition of using Test Suite and a Q&A. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can submit a question to us by typing your questions in the question pane on the control panel on the GoToWebinar interface. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect them and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So on to a little bit about us. We are a dedicated team of experts focused on digital transformation lifecycle within the SAP ecosystem and have a strong team of former SAP Solution Manager practice leads. We are a recognized leader with a proven track record to deliver ALM solutions and have been driving the adoption of SAP Solution Manager. We've worked with many SAP clients, big and small, and have been trusted to deliver results. Our main expertise is in digital transformation lifecycle and SAP Solution Manager, but we cover all aspects of the Solution Manager platform and have the resources to deliver services in managing application lifecycle. With the push to HANA, we also help companies with HANA conversion and upgrades. Here's just some of our awards and the certifications. We are SAP partner and certified in Run SAP implementation. With that being said, thank you once again for attending, and I'll now hand it over to Larry.
Okay. Thanks, Ivan. So let me, here we go, share my screen, and we'll get started here. Well, we still have battery power. So I'm going to start off with continue with the presentation, and let me get it started here. So this is the presentation, and Ivan, you've already covered it up to the overview. So let me get down to that point.
Larry, this is not the right presentation. No, this.
Hang on a second.
Yep, sorry.
It's that's not it either. Is this 720?
Yep, that's the one.
The one, okay. From the other ones that we did. Okay, so okay, now we're ready to go. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, I want to start with an overview of Solution Manager 7.2, and some of the things. So BPCA has been around a few years now with scope and effort analyzer, change impact analysis. But now that 7.2 is here, there's a lot of things that improvements that are being made, and as I go through the presentation and the demo, you'll see some of those. You know, enhancements are going on, and one of the reasons that those enhancements are you know, able to be done now and maybe before weren't able to is because the architecture of Solution Manager was changed with 7.2. So it was built to support HANA and the digital transformation, and as part of that, it was total architect change. And some of the things, especially in testing, that we had you know, been hoping for several years, are now available. And SAP has with Support Pack 3 added testing for 7.2, and then also added a major enhancement pack with Support Pack 5 for 7.2. So 7.2, you know, we show this in all the presentations because this is big too. You know, SAP Solution Manager, one of the pain points has always been, you know, it wasn't easy to use, and you know, the navigation wasn't good. A lot of icons, drop-down menus, but with 7.2 now, it uses Fiori, and of course that's Fiori with SAP HANA is being used, and it really does make things a lot easier to use. So you'll see Fiori in the demo, and it's a dashboard approach, so it's easy to much easier to use than the 7.1 and the other previous versions. Again, with 7.2, just to mention some of the other things, latest technology, HANA as a database, so you can begin learning more about HANA with Solution Manager because the database comes with it, and you know, there's no additional licensing charges. New functionality within Solution Manager, business process modeling, and also in release and project management to support HANA implementations. And now is the time to really begin upgrading to 7.2 if you haven't yet. So Ivan, I'm going to let you do the poll question now, and the question is, have you upgraded to 7.2 yet? So take a minute to answer that, and Ivan, you can give us the results.
Just gonna give another few more seconds. You're almost
okay
there. Yep. Okay, gonna share the results. So we have about like 60% yes and 40% no. So we still do have quite a few of the users in this workshop not upgraded to 7.2. Right, back to you, Larry.
Thanks, Ivan. Okay, so I should be able to share again. So here it is. Really, the 7.2 has been being developed because it is a major change starting in 2015. Ramp up last year. You know, the beta releases and enhancement packs all the way up to 5, and the time to upgrade is into 2017, so that's getting close now for those who haven't. Okay, so that was an overview of Solution Manager, big picture from a testing perspective. And next, we want to dive a little bit deeper into the test suite. So, test suite, things are changing too in the testing world for SAP. Test suite is a complete, full-blown application. So it means you can do everything in Solution Manager test suite that you can do in any other full ALM product, you know, and it's also developed to support the HANA going forward, HANA implementation. So SAP and non-SAP solutions. So a lot of times, you know, we have people that start getting concerns from, you know, even though you might be a SAP-centric solution, you know, the non-SAP is important. But within SAP-centric, there's maybe a combination of SAP and non-SAP products that are used maybe in end-to-end scenarios. So those are going to work real well with Solution Manager 7.2, meaning that, you know, manual testing is going to work the same way, whether it's SAP or non-SAP. You have a test case and you can execute it and record the results and do your reportings. So that's really no change. But the non-SAP that are totally non-SAP, maybe like a corporate portal, you know, those get, you know, a lot of questions about, you know, is SAP and how are they going to handle those? And sometimes we head in different directions from, you know, the automation framework. So we did cover automation framework last week and won't go too much in that, but you can see on the slide for yourself, you know, SAP is ready for HANA, ready for the cloud, on-premise, or a combination. So it's the default solution for SAP customers. So within testing and testing tools and within the ALM world, you know, the full application lifecycle management part of it, you know, test suite is a big part of it, testing part of it, and within testing to drill down into the flow, the first thing that happens is when you're doing an implementation, you may build solution documentation for supporting testing. Really the main parts of solution documentation that we're talking about is executable library, meaning a transaction or a URL or a program name, objects that would be in the executable. So that's you know, easily done within Solution Manager Test Suite and within the Solution Manager part of it. And then there's the process step library, bringing it down from a process to a process step, from business processes. And all that is and most people are familiar with it, it's a structure, a folder structure, the way that you may have your test set up in SharePoint or HPALM or other tools. After you've done the initial implementation, there's other solution documentation like BPPs, BPRs, config documents, other documents that are part of gap analysis that are stored in solution documentation. So again, if you have those, they can be converted, content activation, and built as part of the structure. If you don't have them and you want to add them, you have them in SharePoint, you can do that also. But for the purposes of testing, they're not really required, but you know, it's another part of you know, having everything in one place so that you can keep up with them. So test cases are part of solution documentation. There's other documents that are, and then executables help build the backbone for what we're going to talk about next, and that's change impact analysis. And change impact analysis, there's two parts to it: scope and effort analyzer, business process analyzer. I'll go into that more in more detail. But you can see the rest of the full part of testing, and we've covered those in previous webinars. And then our testing framework, again, the tools that we would use for SAP is CBTA. It handles all the UIs. HPUFT would be used maybe like end-to-end scenario. It's not SAP, it's a web application, and it will fit right into the end-to-end scenarios and pass the data. And also work with what we're talking about today, change impact analysis. So went down one screen too many. So now we're going to begin talking about scope and effort analyzer, and Ivan is going to handle the poll. And question is, do you currently use BPCA or scope and effort analyzer for planning test scope?
Okay, the poll is active. Okay, the results are about like 25% yes. Oops. Let me share the results, and yeah, so the results about 25% yes and 71% no with a maybe. So yeah, majority of the attendees in this workshop currently do not use BPC and SCA for upgrade.
Okay. Thanks, Ivan. So so now we're going to dive deeper into change impact analysis, and the reason I came about, they have SCA and BPCA, and again, you'll see the difference. They're really closely linked, and the way you use them are very similar. But these are the reasons SAP developed and invested in building change impact analysis. And again, these are products that we're going over. You know, they're part of your maintenance agreement, so, you know, part of support, so you get these at no additional licensing, everything we're talking about. But the problems with enhancement packs was doing a cost and effort estimation, meaning, you know, what's really in the what's in this huge enhancement pack that really I need to be testing and being concerned about. So, you know, I have you know, a part of SAP, but what do I need to do in this big, huge enhancement pack to test this? So the cost, and not only that part of it, but if you have customization, then of course, you know, you have changes that you're going to have to do for those customizations. So there's development work. So how to plan that? What's the cost? What's the effort? You know, when can we fit it in with all the other projects that we have going on? So that's you know, was the challenges that SAP customers provided feedback on. So that was a big part of it, but also the efficient testing. You can see that's a big concern in upgrades. So you don't want to test too much. You want to test exactly the right amount. So test too little, or if you test too much, then that's not efficient. So and then the other part is making the modifications, especially in customization. So Scope and Effort Analyzer was one of the products in the first one we're talking about today. And Scope and Effort Analyzer, so the problem that this is addressing is, okay, before, if you wanted to do an enhancement pack, you needed to bring it into your development or sandbox before you deployed it. So you had to bring it in to be able to start doing analysis to say, okay, this is what it's going to take to do it. This is the task. This is our project plan. This is how long it's going to take. These are the resources. So, you know, that was a big effort, and it almost forced you to say, well, okay, I brought it in now. It really can't back it out. So, you know, it kind of forces the issue in one way, but it's not a good way to, you know, from a planning perspective to do it. So what Scope and Effort Analyzer does is it allows you to do this by going to SAP in the cloud. And so now you can see that let me go back to this slide. So within 7.2, the maintenance optimizer is replaced with a cloud-based maintenance planner. So what is that all about? So here's the way scope and effort analyzer works. In the QA system is where you use test scope optimization and also using calculation of T-bombs. And then in production, you have UPL, and now in 7.2, SCMON that generates the statistics, captures the statistics. So you send the statistics to solution, or they're combined within Solution Manager, within prod, QAS, and then in dev, that's where your customizations are. Those are all combined. They're sent to SAP through a firewall, and then here's when the calculations are done for scope and effort analyzer. The results are fed back to then do the analysis and building your plans. So this is the way maintenance planner really works. So you build scope and effort analyzer, has several questions, assistance, or the systems and the maintenance plan, additional systems, where solution documentation, test scope, and then this all gets combined and sent to, again, maintenance planner, and then it sends back the results. And those results are the same and similar to what you get back from BPCA, the summary, modifications, the test management part of it, and details of the modifications in the test plan. So BPCA somewhat similarly works to provide change impact analysis once you have an enhancement pack in dev or a sandbox. So next poll question is, do you currently use Live Compare, Panaya, or for planning a test scope?
All is up. Just gonna give it a few more seconds. Okay, most have responded, and I'm gonna close the poll and sharing the results. So we have about 17% yes and overwhelming 83% no. So I guess that's why you guys are in this workshop.
Okay. So, alrighty. Poll's closed now. So let me go on. So, all right. So we talked about scope and effort analyzer before an upgrade, just being able to help with the planning and what are you going to be, what changes are in there that impact your system. And then the next part is BPCA. So BPCA, very similar. And you'll see that in the demo, but you go into Test Suite, and in Test Suite you can go into Business Process Change Analyzer and specify what transports within a release that you want are an enhancement pack or object. So you can look at it in a different way once it's within it's in the system. And then as you begin doing the changes, for example, in development, you can run BPCA to see if all the impacts have been taken, or impacts for changes have been corrected. So BPCA, again, similar type thing, is changes and updates occur frequently, and they're triggered by a lot of different things, and so support packs, enhancement packs, HR enhancement packs, customizing change, custom code development, and again, knowing what are the business processes that are affected. So BPCA and scope and effort analyzer prerequisites. So these are things that you need, but solution documentation, again, this is not, you don't have to have all the documents, but you have to have those that we talked about. You have to, in 7.2, there's executable library, and there's the process step library and business process step library. So you're probably familiar with those. It's a structure, and you can begin by doing all of it as a part of a upgrade to build your structure, or a small release. So it doesn't all have to be done at once either. And the next part is, and a lot of people are really familiar with this, it's UPL. So it's going in and looking at statistics and production mainly. So you say, well, what do I have in my system, and what am I really using? And you capture that information through UPL, and now by SCMON, which takes a deeper look into that. So there's maybe function modules that are across different functional areas like CRM, SRM, ECC. So this goes into that depth to say, well, this function module in CRM is going over to SRM, and before you wouldn't really be able to see it to that depth. So statistics data transfer, meaning that Solution Manager configuration and custom code management is the statistics that are transferred. Part of BPCL, and this BPCA is a one-time setup, and this is doing a self-check to make sure everything's set up. Initially, you can start with semi-dynamic T-bombs, and again, those are that's easily done because you have the UPL and SCMON data. You can create semi-dynamic T-bombs. Over time, either manually, but preferably by automation, you can create dynamic T-bombs. And then the other part of setting up BPCA and SCA are the reports that tell you that whether all T-bombs are set up, or which one have dynamic or semi-dynamic T-bombs. Not to go into a lot of depth, but again, start out with semi-dynamic T-bombs, and again, you got to get really good with ABAP, call monitor, and dynamic T-bombs. What do we mean with that? So manual or an automated test, for example, like creating a purchase requisition. Purchase requisition, you've got like a header information, and you have more detailed information. You have tabs across the bottom that have different information about shipping and accounting. So there's a lot of different parts to maybe just, for example, creating a purchase requisition or a purchase order. And what happens if you're capturing that information manually when you create a dynamic T-bomb or using an automated test, it gives you more precise information. It only looks at the process flow that you use. So if you a semi-dynamic is good to get started with, but it would probably give you more results than it would with a dynamic T-bomb. So that's the best practices with building the T-bombs. So the flow is within Business Suite or HANA, you use objects and UPL, SCMON. So ABAP call monitor is pulled in, it generates the semi-dynamics, and you really are still beginning to get a better picture of what you really need to test. And that's the part that we're the view that we're looking at today. So UPL generates semi-dynamic T-bombs, programmatic code analysis of each executable, includes the branches not verified by UPL usage data, so it excludes those. And then the call monitor, that's the new part. It's a compilation of used objects for each executable identified, plus data dictionary objects and tables, includes dynamic calls to other execution objects that were not included in UPL. So this is an improvement on creating the semi-dynamic T-bombs. Okay, next, it was a little slow there and it went 2 slides. So again, here's 7.2, some changes. So again, support pack 3, that was a lot of enhancements in the test suite. Support 5, additional changes and prerequisites. Okay, so BPCA for test preparation for support packs, enhancement packs. I'll show you this in the demo, and it identifies impacted business processes and steps, and test scope optimization. That's really a big thing, because you can take a look at the results of change impact analysis, and maybe have a transaction that's used multiple times in the end-to-end scenarios. So what test scope optimization does is takes that and finds the best set of end-to-end scenarios, or if it can't be done in end-to-end scenario, the test that needs to be created to test that change. Again, we see a lot about fix, enhance, and innovate. So fix is things that we're doing, run SAP. So these are changes that are going on all the time. They're rather small, maybe they're daily or monthly, and these are maintenance activities, custom code changes, and customizing of objects. Then enhancements, those are just minor releases, and they may be weeks again. So again, releases that may be going on, but maybe this is not part of fix, run the business, but this is part of a project of small minor changes. Then innovate, those are the major things like EHPs. And you'll see this again in the demo, but this is a graphical overview of program codes, programs, and different objects, table contents. So this particular analysis had a lot of table content and some data dictionary objects and some program and code objects that were impacted. So this is the detail report. This is a screenshot of one of the demos, and it shows the transports. And this is just for one transaction code, ME31K. What you can see is all the different item function modules that are covered, methods, reports, tables. So all of those different object types that are impacted, this is where you can go in and look at the details of it. From a testing perspective, though, what we're interested in is the test scope optimization. So we have all of that information, but we want to know what test cases that need to be run to test the changes that are going through. And this kind of is a good indication of from a testing like regression testing. You have a lot of end-to-end tests, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 end-to-end tests that you like to run over and over. So, but a transaction may be in multiple versions of end-to-end test cases, and maybe that transaction can be tested in just one end-to-end test. Sometimes it may require a single test just to test it. So test scope optimization, again, gives what we're looking for from testing, and that's what do we test? We don't want to test too much. We don't want to miss anything either. So this is an example of a report, and it shows that at 99 points test coverage, the manual test effort was 72, and without it, at 100%, it was 1,214 hours. So, so it's ways to optimize the testing on a risk basis, and that's what test scope optimization does. And so here's the real winner within Test Suite. So we run test scope optimization, and from that we can create a test plan. This means that we've decided that we're going to do 99% coverage, and with that coverage, the test cases will be created as part of a test plan. So we've already built executables and solution documentation. We've added manual and automated test cases, and then those are identified and is created in a test plan. So a test plan is just a list of test cases that need to be run, and then those end up going on a test package and a tester work list, and you'll see that in the demo. So SPO5, well, if you don't have BPCA yet, you may not be, so you'd be starting with support pack 5, so you would know what's in there. But again, this is just to show you that with the new architecture, SAP is continuing to do additional things to enhance change impact analysis. So first one, dynamic T-bomb generation for executables, Fiori, so that's good. T-bomb generation based on the ABAP call monitor coverage for CRM, SAP CRM, charm integration for upload features, RFC or ATR work package, change documents and work items. BPCA self-check, where use index to up-to-date required for a generation of semi-dynamic T-bombs. Download and upload of solutions between Solution Manager systems. T-bombs is included in that now, so you can export, import, and include T-bombs. So that was not available until support pack 5 of 7.2. Scope and effort analyzer removed the source branch. So you can see these BPCA personalization of test suite for input fields, so you don't have to keep adding those over and over again. New things in test scope optimization. So I won't go through all of those. I want to move on here. Here's for return on investment. This was presented in 2015. So, change impact analysis been around for a while, but you can see that for this customer, BNSF, they presented this, and these were the types of reductions in their testing effort that was realized. So now I'm going to move over to the demo and move over to, so this is Test Suite in Solution Manager 7.2. Can show you first, if we go to the home page on Fiori, and this is the way it looks. So there's a lot of different tiles here, and looks like a dashboard. But the part that I went to is, I just went to the Work Center. So that's Test Suite Work Center. And today, again, we're interested in scope and effort analyzer, and business process change analyzer. So when I go to business process change analyzer, you can see that, and this is an example, you can see there's different impacts. You can run support packs or support pack stacks, enhancement packs, planned activation, a change transaction object list, transport request. So that would be maybe a typical part, but again, support an enhancement pack again after you've run, after you've implemented it into a sandbox or dev. But here's what you do: you select the managed system and the client, and then you can select the transports that are in a release, and then you go down and scroll down here and you can see, then we select the solution. So this is the way 7.2 is built, a solution and then a branch within the solution. And then you run that. So that, again, this is running against what we already have set up, and it's running against the T-bombs, and it comes out with a results file. So where I mentioned that scope and effort analyzer, BPCA, so if you ran scope and effort analyzer, it would be a results file that would end up here. And then you began looking at the data for different purposes. So again, these are different objects that are impacted. So if I select MA31K, for example, and then I just select the ones. So there's two here. One of them is process. One of them is process step. So I'm going to pick this one that's part of the process, and then look at the intersection. And what's in the intersection is going to show, actually that was not the one I wanted. What I want is this one, and the intersection. So this pulls all the objects that are impacted. So this particular one, we want to go down to the look at the detail report. And within the detail report, these are the object types. So there were tables that were impacted within 31K. So again, that's, I see, I highlighted 58. So I want to go back and do this one again and look at ME31K. And get a little bit more data out of this results, ME31K, and then filter that down. And here we have transactions. So this is one that I wanted to show you. And then with the intersection, you'll see all the different objects that were impacted when we did this. So there's 4,172, and then when you look at the details here, there's it'll show you the different types of objects that are impacted. So take a look at the list here. There's forms, functions, methodology, reports, tables, views. So these are the different objects. You can take this and select all, and then can export this to a spreadsheet and break that up in different functional areas if you needed to do it that way for people to start doing their analysis. But from testing, the next part that we're really interested in is the optimizing the test scope. And test scope optimization. So here again, this is one we're looking at before, the coverage at 99% versus 100. So we can reduce the effort, and you can see that here's with test scope optimization at 99.1 without test scope optimization. So I want to go over to and look at the rankings. So there's rankings that get built, and it's based on the number of times that you get hits on the different transactions and objects. And then within solution documentation, we have in the business process, and this is kind of where I want to go. So there's end-to-end tests that we have here, and the one that I like to show is the one to procure to pay. And so what happens is after we have identified test cases within here, which is have this one procure to pay test case, but and purchase requisition, purchase order, goods received. But if you visualize all of the different test cases that would be impacted, and then we go and create a test plan. You create a test plan, and it's going to pick up those test cases and say, when you create the test plan, it's going to have all of those test cases listed. And I'm not going to go through this, but there's just test plan ID. It would be like 2017 September release, and I would put in description, test note documentation for test results, plan and start date and end date for this test. And then you create a test plan and test suite will have all of those objects. And since this is not the detail, since we're more interested in business process change analyzer today, I'm not going to go through all the test management, but what happens, it ends up creating a test plan here. You can go into the details of that test plan. You could add additional test cases, take away test cases as you finalize your test plan. And then eventually you break that down into test packages. And a test package could be, you know, like different end-to-end scenarios, might be in different packages, different functionality in a test package. But, you know, that's more details that are part of, again, you know, the test suite, the tester, test plan, test execution, reporting details. So once we have a test plan, we've turned it in a test package, I end up with a tester work list. And this is an example of what a tester work list looks like. So these are tests that were selected by business process change analysis, either through scope and effort, running scope and effort analyzer, or running BPCA. And again, we run these. This is 2 automated scripts. This is a end-to-end process, the one that I showed you, and it would also include all manual tests. So this is just kind of a small example in a demo system, but if you visualize expanding out all of your test in the different areas and different having those set up as executables and test cases, and then you create the T-bombs, run that, and then it selects what you need to have for a test. So that's what I wanted to show in the demo today. And next we have another poll question, and if you'd like a more detailed demo, meaning give you a chance to go through the demo slowly, ask questions, and really the questions that you might have is the question for this poll.
Just gonna give it a few more seconds. All right, gonna close the poll.
Okay.
And show the results. So we do have like a slight more people selected towards automated testing and change impact analysis and QGM. So just across the board results.
Okay. All right, so wrap it up here with the value proposition. So again, this is some key takeaways. You know, what is BPCA all about? So again, you know, we divide these up into CBTA and BPCA. So those are major drivers that push through the test management, test suite part of Solution Manager. But here's key takeaways: is it identifies critical business processes that are affected by change events. It improves the handling of those events, like support packs, enhancement pack, customization, trigger changes, and then it provides the risk-based testing through test scope optimization. And overall, a solution manager value proposition is the integration. So again, everything that we do in testing, change and release management, especially along with testing, those are all integrated within Solution Manager 7.2. And then for, when you start thinking about your HANA path, portfolio and project parts are integrated really tightly to something that, SAP spent a lot of time on. So risk-based testing, Test Suite and Solution Manager 7.2 are built to support HANA implementations, improve testing by knowing what to test and when to test, and managing test cases, test progress efficiently, and the test automation. We covered that with low maintenance. So again, the low maintenance is tied in with change impact analysis with test automation, meaning it identifies what scripts need to be changed, and then you only have to change those that are impacted and not have to change a lot of them. And CBTA went over previously, but it's component based, and that component base makes it easy to maintain. And again, when you're thinking about BPCA, you can see there's a lot of data that's involved. So, we have heard from other customers that have used other products that, when you start doing something the size of an enhancement pack, there's a lot of data that has to be moved around. So this is, SAP is just saying no data replication required, lower total cost of ownership. You may even need another server and a lot of work building an environment other than what you have to be able to support some of the other tools. So it requires all, but overall, 7.2 Test Suite requires everything you need for functional testing for SAP and non-SAP. And, big thing you hear us talking about a lot is single source of truth. So, again, you don't want the silos where you have different information being reported, and that's not really always the source that you should be getting information from. So I'm going to wrap it up now and turn it over to Ivan. Just quickly though, if you're interested in what you saw today, you want more information, we can give you a demo and just let you go into some of the things that maybe you want to have more clarification on, or have questions, or understand better how it works in 7.2. And then we have 1 hour assessment to see where you're at, maybe kind of a high-level roadmap, and then jumpstart packages where we can, get you going and set up so that you could start using 7.2 Test Suite. And now I'm going to turn it over to you, Ivan, for questions.
All right, thanks, Larry. Thanks for your presentation. Okay, so I do have a bunch of questions here. So Luke asks, will you be sharing the recording after the meeting? Yes, we will. We'll be sending out the recording of the webinar tomorrow, I think, once we have it uploaded. And moving on to another question will be from Van Kata. Is it possible to implement BPCA and CBTA without CHARM?
Yes, it is. Yep. So yeah, it's you can implement BPCA and scope and effort analyzer without charm, but so you just have to select the transports. But it does work really good with charms because you have the change impact, or you have the changes coming through, and then they're coming through charms as a group. So that is a good way to do it, but it's not required.
Okay, hope that answers your question. And I do have a follow-up question from him. Can I create T-bombs using CBTA tool?
Yes, you can. So that's that's the good part of CBTA. If you're doing CBTA first, you could use that to create T-bombs. So yeah, you just run that. It creates dynamic T-bombs, and that's the very best way to do it. Although you can do a manual, you can go through a manual test and create dynamic T-bombs, but doing CBTA and creating T-bombs at the same time is really a good way to do it, because again, if you go through the exact process flow that you go through, like the example of a purchase requisition has different tabs and header and details, it would be specific only to what you're using within that particular process in that end-to-end scenario, or within that transaction.
Okay, hope that answers the question. Venkata, I see that you have a few other questions. We'll get to you if we have time. Just a reminder, you can still ask questions using the questions pane. If we don't have time today, we'll definitely follow up with an email with your questions answered by Larry. So moving on, a question from Daniel. So another T-bomb question. Why are static T-bombs generated not recommended for use by SAP?
Static T-bombs? Static T-bombs, yeah. Those, they really, that means that you haven't really gotten any good information about what from UPL, SCMON, or from creating dynamic T-bombs. So what happens if you don't have anything set up to capture the semi-dynamic T-bombs, meaning there's no data there, then it's going to default to a static T-bomb. But it's going to give you so much information that it really is, it's going to cover, for example, anything in an ME51K, create a purchase requisition, or ME21N, it's going to capture everything that's in there. So there's no really breaking it down into really what you are using. So yeah, SAP, even though you may end up having those, then your best thing then is to try to get those set up to be able to run semi-dynamic, or you can create it different ways. You can do it with creating a manual or automated T-bomb.
Right, hope that answers your question, Daniel. Okay, yeah, welcome, Daniel. So next question from Chris. Will SEA and BPCA review gateway and portal impacts when SP EP changes are performed?
So portal, meaning I guess I'm so the portal, yeah, would work with the portal. So for changes. What was the other one? For gateway.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to repeat the question again. Will SEA and BPCA review gateway and portal impacts when SP EP changes are performed?
I don't know. I think let's take that down. I'm not sure that.
Okay, we'll take it offline. Yeah, we'll email Chris and Rob, Larry, and so maybe to clarify the question that you're asking. So since we're at the top of the hour, we're just going to have one more question. So a question from Surrender. We're currently using Solution Manager 7.1 and planning to implement Solution Manager 7.2 in the next 6 months. should we wait to start doing BPCA and SCA until 7.2 is implemented?
If you haven't started, I would recommend that you do that after you go to 7.2. So you can do you could begin doing that in 7.1, but if you're going to be doing it within the next 6 months, I would recommend that you do it in 7.2.
Okay, so I do see a few the questions. You're welcome, Surrender. We'll follow that up offline with Larry. He will answer your questions. So we really appreciate your presence here today. Thank you, Larry, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. This is the last of the Test Suite webinar series. We'll have it all up on our website shortly so you can view them. Do follow us, and we will have a new series of webinar next month. And thank you again, and on behalf of everyone here at CoreALM, thank you for joining us today. And just the last question, if you don't mind, if you have or you need assistance for your project, just click yes or maybe, and we'll get back to you. So thank you again, and have a great week ahead.
Marley.